Hey folks, Marcus with MarcusBlankenship.com here. So we were in our tech lead mentoring group last week, and we were talking about how perceptions about the software development process really impact things in pretty subtle ways. And I wanted to ask you something. Do you have the impression that software development can be done perfectly the first time? And if you don't, do you think your boss does? Let me back up here. The idea is, do you or your boss have the impression, and let's just say that maybe somebody else has this impression, because I think it's a fallacy, and it's never fun to admit we have one of these, but the idea that given perfect enough requirements and a perfect enough skill for it at the developer level and a perfect enough QA department, that a project can come through perfectly spec'd, go through development, go through QA, and then be released, and then won't need to be changed after that, right? That is the goal. I see a lot of software development managers and team leads and even programmers who have this idea that they think that development is almost like a piano concert recital, right? You go up, your goal is to do it perfectly one time. And if you could just get one time done perfectly, it would sort of be like the heaven opens, kind of moment. You might find that if you're frustrated that there's so much rework, that there's so much, refactoring, and you're constantly wondering, why can't this have just been done right the first time? You might have a flawed mindset about software development. In fact, even if you don't think that, and you totally realize that refactoring and iteration and that sort of thing is an important part of software development, your boss might have this impression. And I hate to say it, but you may have given your boss this impression unwittingly. One of the ways you may have given your boss this impression unwittingly is by hiding rework, training, and refactoring inside of other kinds of tasks. Now, let me be clear about this. If you feel that you are trying to sneak in continual training for your employees, if you're continually saying, you know what, I don't need to have a public place where I acknowledge refactoring work or places that need to be reworked, let's just kind of sneak them in, and that way the boss doesn't ask too many questions and the client doesn't really wonder what's going on. I'll just find ways as the development manager to prioritize every once in a while these hidden kinds of things. Now, I have no problem about learning, training, and refactoring in around real work, right? Do it as a part of the real work you do, but if you're sneaking it in, if you're hiding it, if you're not exposing it to other people, you might be simply reinforcing the impression that we're doing it perfectly the first time, or even that it can be done the first time perfectly. One of the other people in the mentoring group actually told us that they have a tech debt JIRA board that everybody can see, and that lots of people can put ideas on that where they see tech debt has been incurred. This meant management couldn't ignore the fact that tech debt was getting accumulated. They couldn't sit back and think to themselves, well, I guess all the code must be running perfectly and there's no place for improvement. Because it was put on a board, and then those tickets were taken off every iteration. There were a few of them prioritized and taken off along with features and bugs. I thought this was really smart, and I wanted to share this idea with you because I think it goes to combat the problem of the delusion that software development should or even can be done perfectly the first time. Now, Jerry Weinberg and I talked about this on a podcast, and Jerry and I talked later about it, and his view, and I'm not going to oppose him, he knows a lot more than I did, but he said, look, perfect software might be possible, but it almost always requires more time and money than the management is willing to spend on it. And I think that means that effectively, the environment you work in, perfect software development shouldn't even be something to try and be achieved. It is not about performing a piano piece perfectly the first time on a recital. It's about doing something once that adds value, refining it. If you might think about it like the example of building a table might be a better analogy. The first thing you do is you build the structure of the table out of wood. You can use that to eat at if you want. You can put plates on it. You can stack stuff on it. But then you apply sandpaper a few thousand times to different parts, and then stain and gloss and more sandpaper. It's the iterations that get the improvement. Nobody would sit back and polish a tabletop before they cut it. Right? That just sounds silly. You cut the wood raw. You get it in the right shape. I know a lot of you out there are like, yeah, I know, that's architecture. And it really is. But the reality is that many of your managers, because you're hiding away from them places of training, rework, and refactoring, you might be giving the impression that your team does create perfect software and there's really no need to think about it any other way. I think in the long run that could hurt you. Instead, expose that your team needs the training, expose that you're doing the refactoring, and make those items first order parts of your development process. Remember, you're not just a pair of hands, you're a thinking, coding group. You have built this, and anyway, I just wanted you to honor those activities as first order processes of software development. All right, this has been Marcus with MarcusBlankenship.com. Like this video, join my list at MarcusBlankenship.com/list. Thanks.